Thank you, and good afternoon to all of you. I'd like to thank the Telecentres.org Foundation and also our hosts in Chile. It's really great to be here. And I work for the ICT Agency of Sri Lanka, and my organization is mandated with really proliferating ICT across the country. So if you could just put my slides on, please. I will move on with that. I will first quickly touch on the three areas that Tim mentioned in his presentation. Policies, technology, and models. Still on Gabby's slide?
Face it towards the
Sorry.
control booth.
Okay, here we are. Okay, so if you look at some of the policies pertaining to the ICT in developing countries such as ours, with the development and the proliferation of ICT, there has been a significant impact on public access initiatives. Governments in countries like mine will still continue to support and implement public access initiatives or telecentre initiatives, especially in countries like Sri Lanka, where the population is over 70% rural, and a significant number of people still live under the poverty line. These initiatives are important. We also have a vision, I think other countries do as well, of taking the benefits of ICT to every citizen in every village. So telecentre or public access initiatives are important, and that policy will continue. But that's not the only policy that governments such as ours will implement. There are others that we will implement as well. We will want to implement broadband connectivity to everybody. In some countries, broadband connectivity is thought of as a basic human right. We are focusing on low-cost computing, bringing down the cost of computing so that people with a little bit of money can buy computers. We are arranging financial schemes to enable them to buy computing. And last but not least, local language capabilities. I think one of the things that we forget in countries like ours is still the biggest barrier. Even if you have low-cost computers and low-cost connectivity, biggest barrier to using computers is local language, because you don't have operating systems, you don't have content available in local languages, and people shy away from computing because of that. So government policy is also to increase local language computing. Now all these things are very good, but it will definitely have an impact on initiatives such as telecentres. If you look at technology, it's the same. These technologies, increasing broadband and wireless connectivity across countries, increasing the mobile penetration and the availability of new mobile technology, the availability of new delivery platforms to provide services, and also digital applications using multiple delivery channels. These will make it easier for initiatives such as public access centers, telecentres, to access information and provide it to services. But it will also make it easier for individuals to own computers and access that. So again, there will be a challenge there that will need to be managed if telecentres still have to provide or play a role. And then we come to the models. We had a lot of discussion about public good versus a commercial enterprise. And Florencio talked about sustainability. He said telecentres are not sustainable, but they have to be. And then this is where we come to what kind of sustainability are we looking at. I think what he meant was telecentres don't need to be financially sustainable, but they have to be socially sustainable. Right, so we'll talk about that in a minute. I'll quickly go through the Sri Lankan experience. Due to the lack of time, I will very quickly go through this. Sri Lanka is an island with 20 million people. We have about 80% penetration in mobile phones, but only about 10% penetration into internet usage, and even much less in broadband connectivity. My organization implements an initiative called East Sri Lanka, which is an integrated e-development program, which looks at various aspects of ICT, infrastructure, e-government, private sector industry development, taking ICT to grassroots and so on. One of the key projects that we have implemented through this initiative is the telecentre program The telecenter program in Sri Lanka, known as the Nana Salas, have over 600 centers across the country. And I would say that by and large, they're very successful. We have various different models, and I won't go into details of that. But in addition to that, like I mentioned before, we also have other initiatives that is being taken on by government. We are implementing a broadband backbone across the country. There are various other networks providing connectivity to government, connectivity to schools, connectivity to universities, and connectivity to other organizations, other entities. These are all in addition to the Telecenter initiative. So again, you can see that accessing a computer connected to the internet is getting easier even without the telecenters, with all these initiatives happening. And on the supply side, a national enterprise architecture and delivery platform is being developed where services can be provided to the citizens through multiple channels, not just computers, mobile phones, even IP-enabled TV. So again, these are things that will challenge the existence of telecenters in the future. When we started the telecenter program, we looked at the objectives and the targets that we wanted. What did we really want out of telecenters when we started this initiative? Telecenters, we knew, was always a means to an end. It was not the end game. The moment everybody has access to a computer, maybe the usage of telecenters will go off. So how does telecenters keep themselves going? We decided that telecenters do not have to be financially sustainable. I mean, that's the policy decision that Sri Lanka took. And that's why we think our telecenters are successful, because we don't look at financial sustainability. All we wanted was, if we have 600 telecenters, 600 communities around those telecenters to be ICT savvy, ICT literate, to have their minds opened up, to the youth to be able to get entrepreneurial skills and other skills through accessing computers. And if all this was achieved, then we thought the service or the objective of having a telecenter was achieved. So this is what it created in the end. And we think it connected rural communities with opportunities that they were before telecenters which were not available to them. It revitalized rural development, increased employment, reduced poverty, and so on. So building sustainable, commercially sustainable telecenters was not the idea. The idea was to ensure that the communities around this was transformed, because the telecenters were there, although the telecenter was run through subsidies. Then we come to the challenges and opportunities. Very quickly, I will go through this. The ongoing change that is going to happen with the profile of the telecenter user. I said cost of PCs are coming down, cost of broadband connectivity is coming down. It is becoming increasingly possible for a certain segment of people to have computers at home. There are mobile devices that are now freely available, freely used, which also have some of those capabilities. All this means is that some of the telecenter users who used to come to telecenters before are no longer coming into the telecenters. The profile of the telecenter user changes. From earlier, where it was a varied cross-section, now the people, or in the future, the people who will use telecenters are people who cannot afford computers at home, people who still think accessing a computer is better than getting this stuff on my mobile phone and using it, because I don't have a smartphone, I have a basic phone. So the profile of the people using the telecenters are changing. That is a challenge. Again, these people who will now come to the telecenter will not have that much of money. These are people who cannot afford to have a computer, who cannot afford to have a smartphone. They will not be able to afford to pay very much money to the telecenter for services. Telecenters will have to offer services for free or at a very low rate. And this is where value-added services will come in. And the proliferation of mobile phones and innovative mobile devices will also add to this challenge. So what are the opportunities? If the telecenters need to go on and transform themselves. I think we need to focus on value-added services. People will not come to telecenters just to have the ordinary services because they can get them from their home or through their mobile device. What I mean by value-added services, if they were giving prices on agriculture produce, you have to add an additional service onto that and make the telecenter maybe an agriculture produce exchange center, where they can actually buy and sell stuff there. If you were using telecentres to create CVs, resumes, to apply for jobs, maybe the telecentre has to transform itself into a job bank that actually gets jobs for people. Another area to focus, where there's a lot of value add, the telecentre can become an e-health centre, where it can provide e-health services to the citizens. Also, where people's local produce, local crafts and other produce that people make, the telecentre can find a market for them and sell it. So these are the kind of value-added services I think the telecentres need to transform themselves to provide if they look to survive in the future. Additional focus on information-related services and educational content. Children, especially in rural schools, still will come to telecentres to access the internet, because educational content on the internet is a great complementary or supplementary source of information for what is taught in the schools. We had focus on the target group. I said the target group will change. That come to these telecentres, we have to focus on them. And last but not least, we need to focus on social sustainability, not look at implementing models that rely on financial sustainability, look at models that don't charge that much or provide value-added services at a very reasonable cost. And if we implement models of this nature, I think telecentres can survive. And the type of models that we have implemented in Sri Lanka is what we call telecentres in religious institutions, which are very sustainable. They hardly charge, most of them don't charge anything from anybody for services, and because of the nature of the setup in the religious institution, the telecentre itself is sustainable. So I think these are the things that we need to focus on if we need to see the opportunities for the telecentres and transform them. Thank you.
Thank